The Chev got stuck in the Ford, got the Chev unstuck when the Dodge showed up. But the Dodge got stuck in the tractor rut, which eventually pulled out the Ford with some difficulty. Well, more rain than we'd seen for 1,000 years caused financial joys and biblical fears. It caused some smiles, it caused some tears, but more to the point of our story. For the first time in the collective memory, that old brown prairie that had been so dry for so long was very muddy, boggy, sticky. We'd pull one truck out and get another stuck in, and motors that roar and tires that spin would sink right down to the diff, and we'd all take turns and do it again until no one could move. We'd call one more friend, come on out here, we need you. Bring your truck. The Chev got stuck in the Ford, got the Chev unstuck when the Dodge showed up. But the Dodge got stuck in the tractor rut, which eventually pulled out the Ford and the Dodge. Equal opportunity. Well, got me stuck in the mud so I couldn't rehearse, and Chavez too has missed his work. Richie, he now fears the worst. He stood up his ex-wife, she called him a jerk. Of course, Holtman didn't have nothing better to do except ranch. The Chev got stuck in the Ford, got the Chev unstuck when the Dodge showed up. But the Dodge got stuck in the tractor rut, which eventually pulled out the Ford. Well, it was truck after truck, we all got stuck, except the big old 4x100 truck. We all thought, Lord, are we in luck, but he wouldn't come anywhere near us. Mighty neighborly, mighty neighborly. We used a lot of our backs and a little of our brains. It jacked up the jacks, it snugged up the chains. We all did our very best to refrain from shoveling. We put what timber we had underneath the wheels, and we was all out of sand, but managed to steal 2 sacks of the best modern canola seed you ever did see. That ought to give us some traction. The Chev got stuck in the Ford, got the Chev unstuck when the Dodge showed up. But the Dodge got stuck in the tractor rut, which eventually pulled out the Ford. Epilogue. We spilled genetically modified canola seed that was genetically modified for control of the weeds and for big old yields of margarine oil, and raised hell all over that native prairie soil. Agriculture Canada is definitely going to be looking for us.
The opinions expressed on this show do not represent those of the station. If you've missed any of the shows, you can follow the podcast at energeticcity.ca. Welcome to This Week in the Peace, a show dedicated to the people, events, and news of BC's Peace region. Here's your hosts, Dub Craig and Steve Berard.
Good morning. Just Dub flying solo today. Steve is not feeling well. Hopefully he will be back. Well, I'm sure he'll be back for next week's show. Now, a little later on, I'm going to be chatting with Fort Nelson Community Literacy Society Executive Director Seanah Mollica. Now, they've been dealing with a $120,000 funding shortfall because essentially a funding contract with the federal government ended, and they don't have that money anymore. So we'll be talking about the challenges the society is facing and some of the things they're trying to do to make up for it, to ensure that they could still offer services to the good people of Fort Nelson. But first, we're going to be talking a bit about the about the fire that started yesterday north of Fort St. John in the Fish Creek Community Forest. Some nearby homes were evacuated and the fire quickly grew to 56 hectares. That's as of this morning. The city of Fort St. John announced that the BC Wildfire Service has also taken charge of the fire from the Fort St. John Fire Department as it moves northeast of the city towards the Beaton River. So to give a full update on the situation and a bit of a look ahead to the weekend, we're joined now by BC Wildfire Service Prince George Fire Center Information Officer, Karley Desrosiers. I hope I got your name, Karley. Thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, that was correct. Thanks so much for having me.
Excellent. So why don't we start with a bit of background on this fire? When did it start? How did it grow so big? That kind of thing, if we can.
Yeah, so the fire was detected yesterday afternoon. Initially, the response was led by the Fort St. John Fire Department, so Fort St. John Fire Rescue, and we're supported by structural fire departments from both Taylor and Charlie Lake. The BC Wildfire Service was supporting with ground crews and air tankers and helicopters. Those crews remained on site throughout the night and are there today again with helicopters supporting with buckets. We are co-managing this fire with Fort St. John Fire Rescue. So as of this morning, we are now in unified command, which means we're working together to establish common objectives, strategies, tactics, and working jointly on information sharing. Looking ahead, I guess, as you mentioned, the fire did grow quite quickly. So given the ongoing drought, local conditions across the Fort St. John or the Prince George Fire Center, but specifically the Peace region, things being considerably dry, and then with the dry air, very little humidity, unseasonably high temperatures, and strong winds. That is kind of the perfect storm for wildfires to ignite and grow quite quickly, which is what we saw yesterday. My understanding is that the cause of this fire is under investigation, and given that this was within the city of Fort St. John boundaries, that will be led by the Fort St. John Fire Rescue. But going forward, priority is to reduce the potential for further northward spread specifically, but also working where the fire does pick up if that occurs throughout the day as temperatures increase and winds get stronger. But main objective at the moment is to avoid further northward growth. The main challenge is just the terrain. Crews are working in steep, challenging terrain, which not only is challenging from a work perspective, but also poses significant risk with danger trees and such.
Mm-hmm. Is the river, like the Beaten River, it's kind of slowly heading, as I understand it, towards a ravine that will end up kind of in the Beaten River at some point. Obviously, you want to stop it before that, but is the river sort of a natural point where, I mean, this fire would have to be slowed down because otherwise it would have to leap, a significant distance to the other side of the river? Is that kind of in the plan if they can't really kind of contain it there?
Yeah, I mean, of course, natural features such as bodies of water are certainly natural fire breaks. However, it doesn't take much wind for a fire to spot. So ideally, preventing further spread towards the Beaten River, but having that water source there does provide water for crews and support on the ground and in the air to get water to the site a lot more quickly. So having that water source is great, both for potential slowing of progression, having a direct water source, and then, being able to stop it at the river would certainly be most ideal if it does end up getting to the Beaten River.
Mm-hmm. Now, you kind of look at a map above, and I don't live in the area, so I apologize if this is sort of foolish what I'm about to say, but you look at a map of the area, and there's kind of farmland, in kind of the larger area around where this fire is taking place, and of course, the city of Fort St. John to the south. Does that also sort of act as a natural fire break? And with that, how much are we concerned that this fire could, get to structures, could get into the city of Fort St. John, that sort of thing? Has that kind of been talked about yet? Or is that something we should be concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge generally, I think just a bit more context, fires in the spring are generally human caused, but also grass fires are very common in the spring. We're in a period of what's known as spring dip, which is where after the snow melts, but before fuels have had a chance to green up and absorb moisture, and we often get rain in the months of May and June. But before those rains come, things are very, very dry. So grass fires are very common. So in that farmland, it's possible if there is a lot of dry grass or a buildup, fires can move very quickly through grass, and especially in the presence of wind. So it is conducive if it does get into a spot where there is a lot of dry grass or continuous fuels can cause rapid spread. At the moment, it's burning more in the gully, in the Fish Creek kind of drainage, the gully, and then in more dense timber. So slower rates of spread, but still the trees are also very, very dry. Even when the needles start to look green in the spring, the trees themselves are very dry. So it doesn't move as quickly through the timber as it does through to say like a grassy field. But certainly, if the fire does spot, if the wind picks up and we get some spotting, that is always a possibility for further growth.
Okay. Now, I think you said this already. So the idea is to hopefully stop the kind of northern growth of this fire. But you look at the weather today, high 27 here, wind 30 to 50 kilometers an hour, kind of out of the south again. It's kind of going to keep blowing that way. Again, we kind of look at kind of a perfect storm for weather in this. How concerned, how prepared are firefighters for hopefully, I don't know, making progress on that? Is there such a thing as really making progress on it on a day like today when I don't think the wind or the weather is likely going to help us at all?
Yeah, we certainly are taking advantage of the period in the morning where the wind is lower. We do understand or recognize that generally fires pick up in the afternoon when there's either direct sunlight or the wind, especially grass fires. It's pretty easy for that direct heat exposure to cause fire activity to increase. We do, like I said, have air tankers available and can be quite effective in slowing fire progression. But retardant doesn't necessarily stop fires. Both retardants and bucketing helicopters help to suppress or reduce fire activity to allow crews to get in and make more progress. As I mentioned, the biggest challenge really is the terrain. So being able to work in that steep terrain, but where the fire is burning, it can be pretty steep in areas that may not be possible for crews to access. So that's where we would rely more on helicopter activity to suppress the fire. But definitely with the windy conditions, that's something that we're looking ahead to and preparing for what could occur. We do recognize that there is kind of that band of continuous fuels there. So getting ahead of that is our top priority.
Okay. One final question for you. And I don't know if you could speak to this, but smoke, of course, always a thing around wildfire season. Again, it's kind of blown away from us at the moment, but has there been any talk about that forecast and whether we're expecting to see, smoke in the city of Fort St. John affecting air quality?
Yeah, I would suggest the kind of peak daily burning period is late afternoon. So I would predict that the fire activity could increase or at least become more visible as the winds pick up. So as the wind basically delivers more oxygen to that fire, it produces more smoke. When it's burning in heavy timber, it does also tend to produce more smoke as well. So it could get quite smoky this afternoon. If there are health concerns, certainly reach out to your local health authority and stay inside if that's more feasible. But likely going to see more smoke this afternoon as fire activity tends to pick up in the afternoons.
Okay. And actually one final question for you. I apologize for misleading you,
sure.
But again, now looking ahead to the weekend a bit, today's going to be really hot. Tomorrow and Sunday, we kind of get back to a bit more normalcy in terms of the temperatures. Still windy, still kind of facing the same way. Is today kind of the big day? And then after today, if the daytime highs kind of fall, is that going to make it much easier for firefighters to really attack this?
Yeah, certainly. The high daytime temperatures is a considerable factor in fire activity. So those temperatures today will definitely cause increased fire activity. But the other two factors are the wind and the really dry air, the lack of moisture in the air. So while those temperatures are going to drop, we're not going to see much of an increase in moisture, and even throughout the night when we generally see it, a pretty considerable increase in moisture. So low humidity throughout the rest of the weekend, despite those lower temperatures, and also potential for windier conditions throughout the weekend as well. I would say I would suggest and urge folks to really hold off on any open burning this weekend. If possible, to wait until next week would probably be strongly advisable. This weekend especially, there is a likelihood for more fire starts, but as always, human-caused fires are preventable and deter and do kind of draw on resources. So being especially cautious with fire use when recreating, avoiding parking an off-road vehicle or your vehicle on the side of the highway in long grass. That grass is very dry still, and hot exhaust can spark a wildfire that could grow quite quickly. So being very, very cautious when out recreating, avoiding open burning throughout the weekend. And then, of course, if out camping or having a campfire, do not leave that fire unattended. Make sure it's cool to the touch before leaving the area. And then if you do see anything that does look like a wildfire, the BC Wildfire Service mobile app is a great resource for reporting fires, but also for the most up-to-date information. And we will continue to share information alongside the City of Fort St. John on ongoing response to this incident in Fort St. John.
All right. Well, Karley, thank you very much for taking some time with us, especially on such short notice today. We appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. Take care.
Yes, indeed. Again, that is Karley Desrosiers from the BC Wildfire Service. We'll be right back to talk with Seanah Mollica on This Week in the Piece right after this.
You've seen it on TV. Entrepreneurs pitching for angel investment from sharks and dragons. But have you ever wondered what angel investing is really like? The Northern Angel Summit is your opportunity to learn how investors assess startups, make informed decisions, and play a pivotal role in advancing bold, new ideas. Visit northernangelsummit.ca and take your first step into the world of angel investing. Don't wait. Go to northernangelsummit.ca today.
Mobil One Lube Express in Fort St. John is proud to serve this amazing community and proud to support our oil and gas industries.
See Mobil One Lube Express for oil changes, transmission fluid changes, touchless car wash, and more. Mobil One Lube Express,
a proud supporter of the oil and gas industries.
Windsor, Windsor, see what we have in store. Windsor, Windsor, we have what you need and more.
1,700 colors. Hi, Richard here from Windsor Plywood, inviting you to explore the 1,700 paint colors of the Dulux palette, specially selected from the Dulux color system. Designer chosen, most popular, and on trend. Available at Windsor Plywood in Fort St. John and Dawson Creek.
Windsor, Windsor, the experts you need to know.
Thursday, May 8th is McHappy Day, when every menu item purchased at McDonald's helps support families with sick children. So you can feel the good that comes from doing good, just from ordering.
So if I order a Big Mac, I'm helping.
Yup.
What about a McFlurry? 10-piece chicken McNuggets and apple pie?
You got it. Every single order helps. Join us at McDonald's for McHappy Day on Thursday, May 8th. Do good, feel good. A portion of food and beverage sales will support RMHC chapters and local children's charities across Canada.
I'm standing here with my head held high. For Canada. Hi, Brian Williams here. You know, over the years, I have been fortunate to work so many big international sporting events in so many different countries. And regardless of the country, the reaction was the same. Respect and admiration for Canadians and Canada. Shop as if your country depends on it. Keep your money in Canada for Canada.
Personal, powerful conversations that deserve to be listened to. Before the Piece is an energeticcity.ca podcast now available on all major platforms that highlights Indigenous voices in Northeast BC. Host Chris Walker will take you on a journey with an Indigenous lens on the history of the Peace region.
In this episode, I sit down with Connie Grey Eyes. We are here mainly to talk about Red Dress Day. We'll get into the meaning behind the day, Connie's work behind the scenes, and what we can all do for our missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
Thanks to Troyer Ventures and the Fort St. John Co-op for making this show possible. Follow Before the Piece wherever you get your podcasts.
Moose Country weather.
Mainly sunny sky today, wind southwest 30 gusting to 50 later this morning. We'll get to a high of 27. Clear sky tonight, we dip to 10 degrees. It'll stay windy overnight. Tomorrow, cloudy in the morning, windy, high of 16 degrees. And Sunday, windy and sunny and a high of 14.
You can watch this show live on Facebook. Catch the replays at energeticcity.ca or be part of the show by texting your thoughts to the Fort City Chrysler line at 250-787-2222.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Dub Craig. The Fort Nelson Community Literacy Society is dealing with a $120,000 funding shortfall after a federal funding agreement wasn't renewed, and this is fairly recent news. So to talk a bit about the effect it's having on the society and the services they provide, I'm joined now by the Society's Executive Director, Seanah Mollica. Seanah, welcome to This Week in the Piece.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for taking a few minutes to chat with us about this. I wanted to start with what the Literacy Society does. Now, we, of course, have the Fort St. John Literacy Society here. I imagine there's a lot of overlap in sort of the services you provide. Tell us a bit about the Fort Nelson version.
Yeah, lots of similarities with FSJ Literacy Society. But we actually offer a drop-in learning center and neighborhood house. So we have a lot of traffic coming in and out. In addition to our literacy programs for families, for youth, for adults, we also provide advocacy support for folks. So if people need help navigating paperwork or applying for something online, like digital literacy is a strong need here, especially for senior citizens. So they can come here and get some support. And we do community connections events, like potlucks, cooking classes, things like that. We do a Culture Fest event every year. It's a big multicultural celebration. Unfortunately, we're not able to do it this year because of our diminished capacity. We also offer the Safe Spaces group, dedicated to creating inclusive spaces in the community. And we, of course, have a very busy settlement program for newcomers and immigrants. And this is where our funding cut has taken place. So we provide support when people are new, can help them improve their English. They, if they need some help going to the bank and starting a bank account, we can go with them, accompany them if they want to check out the rec center, things like that. So it's an important program just because we have such unique challenges here. In Fort Nelson, we're so remote and we lack a lot of services. So we do all kinds of stuff here at the Literacy Society.
Yeah, I mean, just from what you were listing there, I can think of 2 or 3 other things in other organizations in Fort St. John that are covering off some of the things that you do in addition to the Literacy Society here. So you've got a broad kind of thing. Do you know it might be a hard question to answer, but offhand, how many people you kind of help out? How many people attend these sort of things? How many clients you have?
So for adult literacy and advocacy, we help about 400 people a year. For our settlement program, we help between 80 and 100. We see about 80 to 100 people attending our classes and getting one-to-one support. And then we have lots of family events. We probably see upwards of 800 people in the community each year. And it's a small community, of course. So it's a pretty
that's a significant portion of your community that you're providing services to. So, well, let's talk about this funding gap. I think I've got the number right: $120,000 that you'd had. That suddenly the government said, "Well, we're moving this funding elsewhere. We're so sorry." Talk a bit about that. What that means and what sort of services and things you've had to claw back, because that, I imagine that's a significant portion of your yearly budget that's now disappeared.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely unexpected to be completely defunded. We did expect and anticipate a decrease because immigration targets were decreased, and we knew that was quite possible.
Seanah, just out of curiosity, had the I apologize, don't know the department you deal with, but had they communicated that to you just to be aware you're likely going to see a funding decrease, or is this just legwork you guys had sort of anticipated on your own?
We sort of anticipated it on our own, yeah. So it's IRCC, Immigration Canada. We didn't quite get like a clear message about what would happen, but in the sector, we sort of knew that decreases would be made. Yeah, and you're right. It's 30% of our budget.
Wow.
So we basically, the organization has been destabilized essentially, and it covered, in addition to that program, it covered it paid like 1/3 of all the overhead. So the bills, the rent, as well as staffing. So it's been quite a loss for us. It's a considerable challenge.
Yeah. Have you had to let go of any staff due to this so far? Or?
So far, we've just made some cuts in hours. We're fortunate enough to have a bit of a contingency, and our board of directors, who are amazing, have allowed us to rely on it for a little while we try to source out other funding. So far, we've retained all of our staff, but we are working in a diminished capacity. Where we have less resources, less hours. So, and we're definitely feeling that.
Now, you also said, I think you had, I apologize, you said what it was for, but sort of helping the newcomers to Fort Nelson, this sort of, people's settlement. Was this money supposed to be used just for that program? And as such, is that kind of where most of the cuts have now come from, is to kind of the people who are coming to Fort St. John who need services, like you say, learning English and that sort of thing. Is that now kind of completely diminished then?
Yeah, so greatly diminished for sure. We still access a small funding pot for from the province. So we can still help with certain classifications of newcomers. So like temporary foreign workers, we can help, but we are unable to help permanent residents or refugees. And we're actually seeing an increase in the community of people coming here, mostly because of the affordability, the low housing costs. People are getting priced out of urban areas, and they're coming to Fort Nelson because, it's just much more affordable. And so it's a time of rising demand and now diminished resources. So it's to help those folks. And, the transition period is it's so important when people are new to the country, new to the community. They're settling in, they're learning a new culture, they're speaking a new language, and having that support is just so important to, prevent the isolation that happens, all of the difficult things that come into transitioning to moving to a totally different country.
What are you hearing from the community now that's seeing the impact of these diminished services when you got to turn people away, or we're full for this program, or what have you? What are you hearing?
Yeah, no, it's really tough. It's so challenging to talk to the people who have been learners here with us for many years now, often, and to let them know that we're not able to help them. We've kind of like walked with these people for a long time, and it's a really tough one for sure. The restructuring of the funding, so funding to service our area has actually been allocated to success in Fort St. John. So our colleagues there are tasked to service this area, and we absolutely have so much respect for them and the work they're doing. But at the same time, they're 4 hours away. The proximity, I mean, we're very remote. It's not a quick trip. Most of our learners, if not all, they don't have transportation. So it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense.
All right. Well, looking forward then, I believe in the story, by the way, you can check it out at energeticcity.ca. You did give an interview to Caitlin Coombs recently about this. You've asked the regional municipality to see if they can help out. Kind of what else is in the plans to see if you can make up at least some of sort of the gap so that you can, again, hopefully reoffer some of the services that you've had to, suspend for the moment.
Yeah, so we've requested funding from the municipality. Haven't heard back from them yet, but that's an iron in the fire. We're trying to be creative with fundraising. We started a community newsletter. It's called the Northern Pulse, and it's been a really great project actually, because our local newspaper shut down last year, so there was a big gap in information, especially for senior citizens who aren't accessing digital information. So we've started this newsletter, the Northern Pulse, and we sell ad space in it. So it's giving us a little bit of revenue. It's 120,000 is a large amount for us. We're a really small organization, so we're just trying to piecemeal it together. But yeah, that's one way we've sort of been creative, and it's a great community project. So we're super happy with that. We're raffling off a package to go see a Shania Twain concert at Calgary Stampede this summer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we haven't really done any raffles in the past for fundraising. It's mostly been grants, but we thought we would give it a try. So put a little spot in for that. If you like Shania Twain or the Calgary Stampede, you can get some tickets from us. And if you don't like Shania Twain, you can use the flights to fly anywhere that WestJet flies, and you can sell the tickets and keep the money. So.
There you go. All right. Well, Seanah, if someone's listening to this and they have upwards of $120,000, even if they have much less than that, but they're like, I think I can help out in a little way somehow, or at least we could talk about it. How do they get in touch with you? Are you the best person to reach out to?
Yeah, absolutely. So to reach us, you can call 250-850-5616, or you can email admin@fncls.com.
Okay. Well, Seanah, again, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat with us. I hope things turn around for you and you're able to find some more funding. Thanks for talking to us about this today.
Thanks so much for having me on.
You're very welcome. Again, that was Seanah Mollica, the Executive Director of the Fort Nelson Community Literacy Society. We want to thank again Karley Desrosiers from the BC Wildfire Service for joining me today. And thank you, of course, for tuning in. You'll be able to hear this show again shortly by checking out the podcast at energeticcity.ca/podcast. You can also check out our other locally produced podcasts before the piece as well. Chris Walker recently sat down with Connie Greyeyes. It is a great conversation, as she always has lots of interesting things to say. So you can listen to that there as well. That's our show. I'm Dub Craig. Be well.
Join us again next Friday morning at 10 for another edition of This Week in the Peace, your weekly talk show dedicated to the people, events, and news of BC's Peace Region. Or you can listen to this podcast